Good morning. It is Friday, September the 11th, and this is The Drill. Thank you very much. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. Who's my audience? My audience is conservative and between 50 and 70 years of age. Who is the true conservative? He's the person that has the courage of his convictions and is confident in what he knows. He's the person that understands that culture trumps politics. He is not selfish, but minds his own business. He acts like an adult. He's patriotic and uses common sense. He makes judgments, refuses to speculate, speaks clearly and definitively, and is not afraid to say no. He's open-minded, asking why rather than why not. He is consistent, credible, and influential, not ashamed of his existence, unafraid to learn or correct his mistakes. He is a normal American, and he is better than the socialist. He is a better friend, father, brother, family member, and a better person, period. You have to know that. If you don't know with every fiber of your being that being a true conservative is best, then you're wasting your time. So what happens after Donald Trump? Who then? What then? President Trump has made a lot of political progress, but most of our problems are cultural. Education, for instance. No matter how well-meaning the president is, he cannot write an executive order concerning every aspect of our lives. And if our culture continues to move to the left as it has been doing for the past 50 years, then at some point elections will be meaningless. If true conservatives can restore our culture, then politics will take care of itself. My podcast is short, approximately 5 to 10 minutes long, because shorter podcasts are easier to download and listen to. The biggest socio-political influences in my life are my parents, my teachers, Ayn Rand, and Dr. Mortimer Adler. My podcast is made available through Spreaker and can be heard on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. Today, where do we stand? Prayer of the day, quote of the day, good news, how can a true conservative win, and how to think about the American attention span. All that when I come back. Thank you. Where do we stand? 19 years after the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Towers and the Pentagon, Al-Qaeda is dead and gone. ISIS is dead and gone. But the United States of America and everything that we represent still stands. There's 54 days before the election. George Soros is still around. Los Angeles Clippers coach Doc Rivers and I are the only two people in America who recognize the destructiveness of police unions. No law enforcement union has yet been decertified, and no laws shielding officers from prosecution have yet been repealed. This means that law enforcement officers or law enforcement unions continue their inherently corrupting influence over our civilization. Decertify police unions and bring back civil service now. New York Times v. Sullivan continues to be the law of the land, and for-profit news is the current paradigm. So news people continue to be super citizens enjoying extra rights and less responsibility than the average taxpayer. Bring back Walter Cronkite. Jill Biden is still the evilest woman in America for encouraging her husband's campaign to continue. The Biden-Harris campaign is designed strictly to mock the Constitution, the rule of law, the president, the election process, and the American people, and make a fool out of Mr. Biden in the process. Bring back John F. Kennedy. Mr. Biden has served his country in the Senate as vice president. Let the man retire. Thanks to the incompetence or malfeasance of the Chinese Communist government, the communist flu continues. but the amount of new cases is dropping. Businesses and schools continue to be locked down in defiance of the United States Constitution, the wishes and the will of the American people, and the testimony of relevant specialists. Materialism is dead. Yet, we continue to make sacrifices, and the insurance companies like Blue Cross and Kaiser Permanente continue to collect those sacrifices. However, the Idaho House has passed a bill to end all coronavirus restrictions. The bill now goes to the state Senate, and if it passes, Idaho will be the first state to stop this nonsense. Way to go, Idaho, for striking a blow for principles. Activism is dead, yet the outlaws in Portland and elsewhere continue their immoral and incompetent ways. The Senate and the House have returned from August recess and are resuming negotiations on a relief bill. And the President has courageously signed 4 executive orders to provide unemployment relief and eviction relief for the American people. When I come back, the prayer of the day. Thank you. Fortunately, Christianity does not need to be brought back because Jesus has been with us all along. The prayer of the day comes from dailyscripture.net. O Father, give us the humility which recognizes its ignorance, admits its mistakes, recognizes its need, welcomes advice, accepts rebuke. Help us to always praise rather than to criticize, to sympathize rather than to discourage, to build rather than to destroy, and to think of people at their best rather than at their worst. This we ask in thy name's sake, through Jesus Christ. Amen. Remember that we have a free will and that we are moral agents. Next up, quote of the day. Thank you. If you seek Hamilton's monument, look around. You are living in it. We honor Jefferson, but live in Hamilton's country, a mighty industrial nation with a strong central government. George Will. Coming up, good news. Thank you. The good news is that President Trump was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. President Trump is projected to get 362 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 176 electoral votes, giving the president a 91% chance of re-election. The model that predicts this victory has been correct in the last 26 presidential elections, including the 2016 election. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has struck down a California law banning high-capacity magazines as being in violation of the Second Amendment to the Constitution. The Trump administration has brokered 2 peace accords, one between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, and the other between Kosovo and Serbia. Attorney General Barr and Senator Lindsey Graham continue to conduct a thorough investigation into the treacherous behavior of former FBI Director Comey and his co-conspirators. Police in the LA region announced dozens of arrests and ongoing pursuit of suspects from summer rioting. The Los Angeles Zoo reopens in 166 days after the pandemic shutdown. Toilet paper is back on the shelves. Not only toilet paper, but rice, soup, paper towels, and bleach as well. Rush Limbaugh is still broadcasting and is still successfully beating late-stage lung cancer, and the market is up. When I come back, bring back. Bring back John F. Kennedy, the gold standard, pre-HMO medical care, nonprofit news, civil service, the term Stupid question. Arguments and fights. The cultural influence of the church, both Catholic and Protestant. Bring back the influence of social organizations, such as the Lions Club and the Rotary Club. And bring back bowling. An aside, why are there no moderate socialists or communists? Up next, how can a true conservative win? Thank you. How can a true conservative win? Get off the grid. The electric grid, the water grid, the sewer grid, etc. The way to start is to get solar panels. You will generate enough electricity to sell some back to the electric company. If you can afford it, run your house on hydrogen fuel cells. Not only will you produce electricity, but you will also produce pure water. The more independent you become, the less power the government has over your life. Coming up, how to think about the public's short attention span. Thank you. News people and politicians both complain that the average American has a short attention span. Wrong. The average American has an acceptable attention span that only seems short because there is no continuity in the news and extraordinarily little follow-up on news stories. For instance, we'll be told about wildfires, where they are, where they started, how big they are, how much containment there is, what has been destroyed, and how many lives have been lost, if any. However, there's rarely any mention of the extinguishing of the fire, where it was finally put out, etc. Instead, the news media simply drops the story. If the average American is supposed to exhibit a longer attention span, then provide more continuity and follow-up on news stories. Back in a minute. If not a true conservative, then what? A voting booth conservative. A voting booth conservative is a person that thinks that they can have their cake and eat it too. That they can go into the booth and vote conservative, but go out every weekend getting drunk or high and slinging their seed. Voting conservative, but telling their children to make their own decisions about politics. They vote conservative, but they tell their needy relatives, go on welfare. That's what it's there for. Instead of telling them, go to church. That's what it's there for. In short, a voting booth conservative is anyone who does not live like a conservative. And that concludes another episode of The Drill. Be honest, be smart, be beautiful, and always ask yourself, what is real? How do I know? And what should I do about it? I'm Ron, and that's The Drill.